Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I want to offer my condolences and prayers to all the families that are here today. I'm saddened that so many North Carolinians were lost in this accident, including Captain Rebecca Lobach and the 4 members of 5342's Charlotte-based flight crew. Samuel Lilly, Jonathan Campos, Denasia Elder, and Ian Epstein. Senator Moran, I'm sorry for the loss of so many Kansans as well in this incident, and I want to thank you for organizing this hearing. Chair Hamady, thanks for your work so far. On page 9 of the preliminary report, it states that the MPFR, the multi-purpose flight recorder's reading for pressure altitude conflicted with other altitudes readings. Ultimately, this conflict led your team to invalidate the pressure altitude reading provided by the recorder. Can you provide any details on the differing altitude readings? And do you have any update on whether this conflicting data was limited to the MPFR or if that was provided to the flight crew and perhaps was a confusing factor?
We are still looking into that and doing some testing. What I will say is the pressure altitude was determined invalid on the Black Hawk because we would expect that to be somewhat similar to the CRJ, but it was much lower. So we determined that that was invalid and it couldn't be used to calculate the barometric altitude. We would need 2 sets of data, which is pressure altitude and barometric pressure setting. We had the pressure setting. We don't have the pressure pressure altitude data for that. So we can't, we were not able to determine from that what the barometric altitude was of the Black Hawk. However, we are looking at other data.
Okay, thank you. General Brahman, Pat 25 was operating out of Davison Army Airfield on a pilot annual standardization mission at the time of the collision. Given the concentration of senior military and civilian officials surrounding DCA, how vital are these missions to readiness for continuity of government operations?
Senator, they're extremely vital. To go back to Senator Cruz's question about how many flights are done, 75% of the missions flown by the 12th Aviation Battalion are in direct support of the continuity of government rehearsals, exercises, and making sure crews are familiar with how to get that mission accomplished. And they stand ready every single day in a 15-minute alert string to do that mission.
Thank you, General. Can the Army continue to fulfill its priority air missions, air transport missions, without access to Route 1 and Route 4?
The Army is certainly, the fact that we're in the working groups will allow us to help influence routing that will allow us to continue to do that mission. I'm confident we can do that.
Thank you. Chair Hamady, again, in your view, is the permanent closure of Route 4 the only solution that allows for continued operations of both rotary and fixed-wing aircraft around DCA?
And it's permanent closure when runways 15 and runway 33 are in use. That was our recommendation to the FAA.
Thank you.
Yep.
Administrator Rocheleau, the aviation investigation report from the NTSB shows that the separation between an aircraft on approach of runway 33 would have a mere 75 feet of separation from a helicopter operating on Route 4 and hugging the shoreline of the east bank of the Potomac. Was the FAA aware of this conflict prior to January 29th? And given the insufficient vertical separation that we're talking about, was the FAA relying solely on controllers in the DCA tower to deconflict the approach to runway 33?
So the FAA was aware of the design of that airspace in advance of December 29th. I would say that's one of the reasons why we immediately restricted that airspace after the incident to review the circumstances around the airspace itself. In addition to that, it's one of the reasons why we are looking at hotspots or mixed traffic areas around the nation, whether that's Boston, Dallas, LA, and Anchorage.
Thank you. Chairman.
Senator, can I?
Please.
There is a DC helicopter working group that we have been trying to figure out who is part of the working group. and get minutes and get documents from that working group to see what information was shared and what was discussed over the years. We have not been able to attain that yet, and I hope we can from FAA and others.
Are you a part of that working group?
We are not part of that working group.
But you have access to it, and they are willing to provide what they find.
We have requested information. We have not even been able to identify who is part of the working group firmly and get documents as part of that working group. We've requested all of that information because we do want to evaluate what was discussed. We're also going to interview the FAA cartographers on how this route was mapped, because that 75 feet is max. That is the maximum. It goes down from there as the glide slope comes down to, as commercial aircraft approach runway 33.
Thank you.